Well, so um, to make my video response to the response that Shinigami X that you gave to my answer to your uh, video. So, um, I will start with, well, the things that we partially or are almost in agreement, mainly concerning Jushiro Ukitake and Shunsei Kyorako. Yes, in the case of Ukitake, like you say on your video, the great handicap that Ukitake probably has as a fighter is his weak state or his sickness. True, completely agree with you. Uh, and that was also in regards especially on Ukitake and Kurako. That was the reason why I did not elaborate much more on the possibility of them fighting head to head with Ichigo, because we, and like you also say and recognize, I think we know little or very little about the full extent of their powers. Correct. And in regards of Ukitake, like I have said, and like you have said, yes, his sickness will be a pretty bad handicap in battle, either against Ishigo, either against any other adversary, and we also already uh, see that when Kaien did or was taken over by Metastakia, I think. Ukitake did try to fight Kaien Shiba possessed body, but he was unable to do it because his sickness kicked in. But yes, like you say, we see a small situation on his using of his Shikai powers that he kinda is able to deflect attacks, Kido based attacks, spiritual pressure based attacks, and so on, because he converts it using his two swords. Correct. That's it. And the only notice I will make on your video about them is that they are, Ukitake and Kyorako were the first one to become captains after Yamamoto found the academy, but they are not part of the founding members of the Gotei Sursin. They are, yes, they belong to the first generation captains formed after the foundation of the academy by Yamamoto, but before them there were the original members of the Gotei Sursin. Yamamoto was one of them. Unohana was also part of it, and I guess that, for instance, Tenjiro was also one of the members that is the founding member of that group, and we don't know the others. True. Also, agree with you on the parts related with Kurako, and I did not forget that the Coyote Stark was Espada 1, and especially he was a natural born Arankar, so his level of power was quite different from the others. that were vassal orders. I don't know if Baragan was a vassal order. I don't think he was one. I think he was also an Arankar, different type of Arankar, but Arankar. But from Aribel, Ulquiorra, eventually Grimjaw, um, they were vassal orders. Uh, but in that regard, both Kyoraku and Ukitake, I agree with you that considering the little we have seen about their powers, probably Ichigo will be unable to beat them down. But that was also the reason because I did not wanted to go that way, because we actually know very little about their powers. But it's quite hinted that in the case that they did fight against Ichigo, probably Ichigo will lost. I don't know if he will lost against Ukitake, mainly because of the handicap he has about his sickness, and that probably will prevent him to use the full extent of his powers, either in Shikai and eventually in Bankai. About Kyorako, I don't believe that Ishigo at this point would dream on vanquish him, because from what we have seen, his experience in battle, his long years of training, his mastering of Kido, because both Kyoraku and Ukitake are Kido masters, without a doubt. The difference in power is astonishing, and also Kyoraku will never be appointed head captain of the Gotei Surfing if his power could not match the office, or could not match the power of his antecessor Yamamoto. So agree. Then our big disagreement will be in the case of Byakuya. For instance, I don't think that Byakuya is more powerful than Ishigo. Yes, he possesses more battle experience. Yes, he is a, a prideful one. He is an arrogant one, in some regards, indeed. However, when you refer the battle between Byakuya and Yami, you cannot forget that when Ichigo did fight Yami after finishing off his fight with Ulquiorra, he was not fighting at full power. Because if you remember correctly, after Zaraki, I think that is Zaraki, that kinda expels Ichigo from that fight, we see that Ichigo goes to the Garganta with Unoana. And if you remember correctly, she is thinking for herself that the spiritual pressure of him is amazing because he's at the level of a captain. And then she comments something to Ichigo, and Ichigo explains that Orihime was only able to restore his body, not his spiritual pressure. And then he goes explaining that his Shikansho, his full Shikansho, is also part of his Bankai, and that he was fighting Yami without half of his power. And if you remember correctly, or if you watch that episode again, we see the expression of Unoana, because she is not able to comprehend the extent of the meaning of that words, because simply the spiritual pressure of Ichigo is on different level. Even for a captain like Unowana, that was one of the founding members of the Gotei Cersei. So, telling on your argument in some way that Ichigo is weaker than Byakuya because he only scratched Yami during their skirmish, it's not accurate, because Ichigo does not have half or more than half of his complete power, and we you should not forget about it. So I don't believe that Byakuya is stronger than Ichigo, but I did say in my video that unless uh, I say on my video that Byakuya and Ichigo fighting, probably they will tire out, unless that in his trip to the royal palace Byakuya in some way gains some power up. However, since Ichigo is now struggling to understand all his heritage and all his Quincy heritage, his Shinigami heritage, his Hollow heritage, and he will need to merge those three powers together. I don't think that if Ichigo do that, he will Byakuya will be uh, like will be not important, because even if he's experience on battle, even if he's a Kido master, even if he is a shampoo master, the difference in power will be astonishing. Uh, and if you also remember, and like you say on your video, when both Byakuya and Ichigo were fighting on the dome surrounded by all the swords, Senkei, even Byakuya comments with Ichigo that the speed of Ichigo did not disappear. He is simply unable to move because this move Senkei kinda compresses the spiritual pressure of the opponent of Byakuya. It did not make Byakuya faster, it will not make him more powerful. It's a technique that kinda inhibits his adversary to reach or to use his full abilities. However, this is broken, like you say, when the Hollow takes over and he lands two Getsuga Tenshos on Byakuya, seriously wounded him. So, by all accounts, I do not consider, not in the past and not now, that Byakuya is more powerful than Ichigo. Uh, like I say on my video, most likely they will tie up in a battle with all powers and 100% complete at this point. Then, yes, it's true that Ichigo does not know how to use Ginsen, but as a technique or in a conscient form. He cannot access his inner world in that way. However, it's heavily implied along the manga that he did achieve Ginsen in a inconscient level. And he kinda uses this technique instinctively, I think. Also, through Ichigo, one of his big disadvantages is that he did not go to the academy. He does not have Kido techniques or knowledge to use Kido. It's true. Mainly, Ichigo uses speed and strength. Those are his abilities, mainly. But we also cannot forget that there are two Getsuga Tensho. We have the blue Getsuga Tensho, it's the normal Getsuga Tensho, and then we have the black Getsuga Tensho. And if you remember correctly, during the battle with Ulquiorra comments to Ichigo that the black Getsuga Tensho he uses is very similar to the Cerro Obscuras that the Spadas from 4, 3, 2 and 1 have, that is the most powerful zero they have, and they are very similar. Also, during the battle with Ulquiorra, Ichigo changed a little the way he uses the black Getsuga Tensho, because if you remember, he currently is no longer firing Getsuga Tensho after Getsuga Tensho after Getsuga Tensho. He is actually using the energy of Getsuga Tensho and kinda concentrates it on the tip of his Zanpakuto and then lands a slash with the double or more of the initial power of a regular Getsuga Tensho. So even the technique of Getsuga Tensho, especially the black Getsuga Tensho, changed a little, and Ichigo also changed the way he uses Getsuga Tensho, the black one, obviously. Also, one thing that you speak about the Vizards or the Shinigami Vizards. Yes, it's true, they have 100 years to train their hollow powers. Correct, exactly. However, we cannot forget that for Ichigo to achieve the final Getsuga Tensho form, he was forced to merge his Shinigami powers, Tensei Zangetsu, and his kinda Vassal Lord form. They merged together. And that was the step needed for him to learn the final Getsuga Tensho. And those powers were even more matured during the Fullbringer arc. And that explains when Ichigo recovers his powers after Rukia stabs him on the back with the energy sword. We see that his Shikansho changed appearance and has some traits of Fullbringer, and we see that his Shikai blade, Zangetsu, changed quite a lot since the time of before the Dangai training and the learning of the final Getsuga Tensho. This for me implies that the Shinigami powers and the Hollow powers merge together. I'm not saying that Ichigo discovered all his Shinigami or Hollow powers, because even I think Rukia comments during the battle with Gingo, after he saw the Fullbringer of Ichigo and when she appears, that he only stole a small amount of power, the type of the iceberg of the power that Ichigo truly possesses. This kinda also implies that even after learning the final Getsuga Tenshu and these Shinigami powers at that time and these Vassal Lord powers have merged together to enable him to learn the final Getsuga Tenshu, there are more to his Shinigami powers and there are more to his Hollow powers. And also, we cannot forget that after the battle with Ulquiorra, the first time Ichigo uses his Hollow mask, the mask changed. The stripes were different, were very similar in some way to the stripes of white, correct? So, this for me kinda implies that even if Ichigo does not have 100 years of training to master and control his Hollow powers, the fact that his mask changed after the battle with Ulquiorra, and the fact that he learned the final Getsuga Tenshu, he kinda he mastered the Hollow powers. And at the level of a visor, he does not need to use a zero like the other visors, because his black Getsuga Tenshu is like a zero, and even Ulquiorra, like I have said, comments on that. So technically, he does not use a zero, but we can consider it the black Getsuga Tenshu that Ichigo uses when he is using his Hollow mask like a zero. And then we have the part on Soifon and Kensei. Well, like I say, in terms of Kensei, I did not say that Ichigo could win over Kensei. I say that probably they will die out also. And yes, Kensei possess more battle experience. Yes, he possesses the Hollow powers that he has, and as such is in a different power level than regular Shinigami captains, correct? But he is a close range fighter. But we also see that Ichigo can use the Getsuga Tenshu at close ranges, because Getsuga Tenshu is not only a long range attack. He uses the final Getsuga Tenshu mainly as a long range attack. However, I don't remember exactly when, but I have the idea that Ichigo also did use the Getsuga Tenshu at close range. And one of the techniques that Ichigo also developed using Getsuga Tenshu is firing a Getsuga Tenshu at long range and then reinforces it with other at close range, thus duplicating the impact and the power. So even if he is not an expert end-to-end combatant, however, when he is in the human world, we see that he also possesses end-to-end combat abilities, because he is kinda bullied by others, he fights others on the street and so on. Ichigo, as a human, even before having Shinigami powers or awaken his Shinigami powers, he was a street fighter, let's say in that way. And we see that on the flashbacks with Sato and their past. And we even saw that at the start of the manga, when he kicked the ass of three guys that are bothering a spirit uh, in a street. So he possesses end-to-end combatant abilities as a street fighter. Yes, he does not goes to the academy. Yes, but we cannot also forget that he also knows martial arts. Because if you remember correctly, when Ichigo was a kid, he also goes to the same dojo as Arisawa. So Ichigo possesses some knowledge of hand-to-hand combat and Street Fighter combat. So even if in his Shinigami form he is not very proficient in using it, he possesses the knowledge and his own experience on it. So I guess, and that was the reason why I say that most likely a battle between Kensei and Ichigo probably will end also in a tie between them. Because one characteristic that Ichigo possesses is that he learns faster, and through fight to fight to fight to fight he gains experience and he becomes even more proficient either with a sword, either in combat. And he also shows some good hand-to-hand combat abilities when he fought Grimjaw. He actually do some hand-to-hand combat with Grimjaw. So we cannot forget it, and that was the reason why I did say that most likely a battle between Kensei and Ichigo will end up in a tie at this point in these three. Because after Ichigo achieve his full powers or achieve a full mature state on his powers, I don't know. But at this stage, I say, and I said that in my video, that probably the battle between Kensei and Ichigo will end up in a tie. Not a victory for Kensei and not for Ichigo. About Soifon, yes, you are right. Probably Soifon does know all the powers that Ichigo uses against Byakuya, because probably Byakuya, like you have said, filed the report to the Captain Commander Yamamoto and to the other captains about what are the powers of Ichigo and what are his fighting techniques. Indeed. However, yes, and you could also add that they kind of have an in-depth situation about his evolution in powers through the substitute Shinigami badge, correct? Because if you remember in the Fullbringer it was explained that the badge was a form of controlling the Reiatsu of Ichigo, and most likely is also a mechanism to control his own evolution in power. So probably yes, she could have access to that situation, even if I'm not totally sure about it, because this surveillance is under the direction of the 12 squad, and giving the personality of Mayuri, but it's possible and it's true. Soifon trusts in speed for make a 2 shots kill with the Omonka and Suzumebashi. However, Soifon recognizes that she is unable to keep up with Yoruichi after their fight when they meet again. And I know that it's a filler, but I remember that I think that it's during the Muramasa stuff that we have Yorichi and Ichigo going to the cave where Yamamoto was imprisoned, and even Yorichi comments, I think, with Ichigo for him to go slower or to slow down his speed because he was quite fast. I don't remember exactly if she was being careful because she does not want it to be detected and so on, but uh, for me, I think that the physical power of Ichigo will be superior to Yorichi. In terms of experience, he will fall back to Yorichi. In terms of speed, I don't know. I still think that Yorishi is faster because she possesses that special techniques he uses in terms of speed. But I still think that Ishigo is more possess more speed than Soifon, and he could evade his blows. But that's my personal conviction. Well, this is quite long again, and I'm running low on the battery, so I finish this video here, and hope to have your feedback soon. So see you soon.